Hello and welcome back to another Ask Me Anything Amazon advertising segment. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Greene. I'm one of the co-founders of an Amazon ad agency. We specialize in helping brands who are in the 7 figures and have 8-figure aspirations, also working with, of course, larger 8-figure brands as well. But specifically founder-led brands is where our sweet spot is, because we love getting in and be able to help build ad strategies to execute your specific business goals. And so it's really nice working with founders. Awesome. Looks like Jacob is here. Hello, Jacob. Thanks so much for joining in. I appreciate it. Looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this as well. If you cannot hear, my voice is shot. I sound like I've been smoking all morning. And that is because I actually attended Prosper, which was amazing. Just got back very late last night. We were back past midnight, up again early this morning, but I had one of these scheduled because, as you all hopefully know, Thursdays are my favorite day of the week because it's where I get to come on here and answer everyone's Amazon ad questions, which is great. So if this is your first time joining in, welcome. Jacob's been here before, and Jacob, I appreciate you joining again. So the formatting of this is feel free to type your Amazon ad questions into the chat. I'll pull them up on screen and then get you your answers. So as always, make sure you make use of this. And if anything I says prompts another follow-up question, or if I say something and you want me to expand on it, feel free to use the chat again. Feel free to add context, as a lot of people do each week, which makes for some really awesome conversations. So again, I appreciate everyone joining. Although heads up, today I'm going to be able to do this for 30 minutes because of, kind of the backlog and work. I'm going to have to hop to another call. Typically, I run these about an hour, though. Oh, awesome. Dante, this is your first time. Welcome. Yeah, so happy that you're able to join us. So yeah, Dante or anyone else listening in, if you have any Amazon ad questions, feel free to type them in the chat. If you have any typical Amazon seller questions as well, sometimes we get those. I do my best if I can to answer those or point you in the right direction, although our expertise is definitely in the Amazon ad sphere. Just got off. I was on another mastermind before this, hopping to. We were talking all about data and observations in the data, which is pretty interesting. There's a really interesting shakeups happening in the industry now, particularly around inventory, which I just told you that my area of expertise is definitely in the advertising game, which is inventory management is outside of that. However, I do know there's been a lot of switch ups to the inventory fees and things. So inventory is on a lot of sellers' minds these days. One thing that we actually have observed that's been quite interesting is that when there is low stock availability, there's actually a decrease in the sales. And we were actually having this discussion around fresh off my mind, probably about 5 minutes before I hopped on here. But so this was something that we had observed, and someone, which is why it's always awesome to be part of groups and get feedback on what you're doing, because someone was saying, oh, that's interesting, with the decrease in sales. So we observed that if you get below 30 to 45 days worth of stock, your sales seem to decrease. Or if you start running low on inventory, there is a sales decrease. And the question was, well, okay, so is that, why would that be happening? Obviously there's, the sales decline, but what's driving that sales decline? And I was like, wow, that's a really interesting observation. So I went back into our data. I definitely have to pull some stuff, maybe see if I can make a study out of it or something, pull some more aggregated data. But just kind of quickly going through it, what I was noting is that actually the thing that causes the decline is it seems to be primarily triggered through decline in conversion rates, which is interesting. The theory there is that with less coverage of stock, more people have longer ship times, and that means that shoppers aren't as interested in purchasing if they have to wait for their purchase. I know, again, me going through Prosper, there was definitely some things down to the wire. I had a pair of shoes arrive the day before I left, and the evening before I left. I actually tried to cancel this shipment because it told me it wasn't going to be here in time. So you're going to end up with a lot of issues like that, which seems to degrade the conversion rates, which is kind of interesting. Cool. Looks like Jacob has a really interesting question. So Jacob, again, appreciate you for joining. So looking to get upskills across Amazon, what resources do you recommend? Well, I definitely recommend this resource, Jacob, for sure, on very specific Amazon ad questions. I would say YouTube is a great resource. When I got started, now I would say you definitely want to make sure you're curating who you're listening to. Obviously, I mean, at this point, doing it over 5 years, six years. I think we've been in business 6 years. Goodness, time flies. I feel like we know our stuff these days. We've been around the block. We've seen a lot of things, and that gives us a lot of context on, us putting out content ourselves. But I would definitely want to make sure that I curated who I'm listening to and making sure that they have their own observations, their own experiences, and they're sharing from that versus just sort of regurgitating the general ideas. Other things that you might find actually interesting is we do have a my brain cannot function. I'm so sorry. I'm running on like 4 hours of sleep. We have a newsletter that you probably find helpful. Let me scroll. I think we don't have pop-ups on our website. Maybe I should do a pop-up, but it's down here at the bottom. You can enter in your info and allow that. Get that. I try to make that newsletter every week like very tactical, very single focus, so that could be a good resource for you. Again, we put a lot of the content up in YouTube. Feel free to always join in this live if you have like a very specific question there. As far as courses, so I don't currently have a course right now because I'm kind of focused on growing our team internally. But I would say between those, Dusty Mouchon is a good one to follow, her team there. Joe Shellerud from Ad Advance, phenomenal resource. I'm going to miss like 3 other people who are amazing. So apologies if you're listening in and we're good friends and you're like, hey, you didn't mention me. But I would definitely trust those people there. Oh, Dante, welcome. First time, first question. Awesome. We are launching a new gummy supplement product in Amazon. We were launching one before, although the launch didn't go so well. Yeah, supplements is tricky, man. Supplements is tricky. So every category is going to have its nuances in terms of how you should run ads. Like the basics are always kind of the same. I would say if you had to focus on 2 things to really get right in Amazon advertising, I would focus on your keyword selection, and I would focus on bid management. If you can get those 2 things right and get a lot of other things wrong, I mean, ideally you get everything right. But if you had to only pick 2 things to get right, and you can get those 2 things, you're going to be well head and shoulders above the crowd. So what I would say is I recommend focusing in on what we call highly relevant keywords. So that's the first thing, is build your launch list. Yeah, Dante's follow-up question to that part too is what's a good launch strategy for supplement products? Okay, so I'm going to give you the campaign structure, and then I'm going to give you how to do the keyword research, and then we're going to talk about bid strategy. Okay, so campaign structure is going to be exact match, sponsored product ads primarily. If you have a sponsored brands video creative, those can work well. Again, also an exact match. If you don't have the creative, I wouldn't sweat it. I would heavily focus on sponsored products exact match in the beginning. You want to focus the majority of your ad spend there. Now, when it comes to what's actually put in the campaigns as far as the keywords, you want to focus in on what we call highly relevant keywords. I'm going to pull up my screen right here. This one, so keyword private workshop recording, keyword research for product launches. Dante, I recommend you go and watch that. That's on our YouTube channel. If you type in, I think it's like at Junglr, would be the tagline. So if you go to YouTube, and youtube.com/@Junglr, you should be able to find it. Or if you search like Junglr Junglr PPC, I think it comes up. But specifically this one, that goes into way more in depth than I would be able to do here. But when I talk about highly relevant keywords, I mean very descriptive of what the product actually is. So you said supplement gummies, right? Are they hair gummies? Are they for skin? Are they fruit and veggie gummies? Are they sleep aids, right? So you could say like, vitamin gummies is very broad. It probably has a lot of starches, but it's not specific to the product. So you want to do really intentional keyword research, figure out where in the market do I feel my product can fit? And what you're doing is the more specific the search, typically speaking, the lower the search volume. That's when people call like long tail keywords, right? Like really, really, really descriptive, lower search volume. Or you have like the really, broader keywords, like I said, vitamin gummies, right? There's probably a ton of search volume there, but it's not very descriptive to the product. So you're trying to find that intersection between where we can really accurately describe our product. So for an example of maybe I have a sleep gummy. So I mean like sleep gummies is probably a really good search volume. It's specific to the product, but it's going to be very, very competitive as well because of really high search volume. And the issue that you're running up against when it comes to launching a supplement is insanely high cost per clicks. Really high cost per clicks. Upwards of a $5 click is not abnormal, depending on what supplement category you're in. So what I would say is you want to get really, really intentional with your keywords, and you want to pick as many keywords as you can afford budget-wise. The biggest problem you're going to want to do is you're going to find your list of keywords. You're going to have 150, 200 keywords. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, I want to launch all of these. Every single one of those, you're paying $5 cost per click, and you got 100 keywords. You get one click all across all those keywords. You immediately spend $500, which may or may not be acceptable depending on your budget. So you really want to hone in on what works. And then again, you were building out sponsored product exact match campaigns for the first a couple weeks or so. And then maybe you can also move on to phrase or broad. Broad low bids actually tend to work pretty good in supplements sometimes long term. And then as far as bidding strategy, I would say you want to really optimize your bids pretty frequently, because as soon as you can figure out, you get enough clicks to validate if something does or doesn't work. If you get a couple of extra clicks at a $5 cost per click, that's $10 spent versus, you get a couple extra clicks when you're spending like 50 cents, you spend $1, $10 versus spending $1. There's a pretty significant ad spend difference there. And that's what makes supplements so difficult. So what we found is that doing very short, not short, but like limited aggressive tests, meaning we're going to pick these two keywords and we're going to go aggressive on them, meaning, we're going to push our bids up past that, $5 cost per click mark, test that, validate that. Okay, does or doesn't work. Then we take that test budget and we move on to the next set of keywords. That helps us not have to have such insane budgets when launching supplements. So not sure if that was helpful. Hopefully it was helpful. But I appreciate you joining, and I appreciate you asking the question because it was a really, really good one. Really tricky category, if we're being honest. All right, another question. So this one's got a part 1 and a part 2. When doing keyword research, I usually choose 1 to 6 keywords. I will use an exact phrase and broad modified filter by the most relevant high search, and then run the rest of my keywords in just exact match. Typically phrase match performs the worst. Would you recommend pausing it or lowering bid, or treat it like a gold panning campaign? That is a good question. Oh, also context for this is supplements. So I would say I like the low bid method in lieu of pausing things. If you are able to do that, I would definitely test that one. What I would say is that I wouldn't be afraid of putting the long tail keywords in broad match. I know a lot of times people say like, oh, when you have long tail keywords, like just put them in exact match, right? The thing that is very unique, or maybe modified broad match, the thing that is very unique about broad match or modified broad match is the fact that it can actually swap the order of the words. And when you get down into the really, really long tail keyword game, sometimes you'll have searches that are triggered, but because the words aren't in the right order, there actually can be a decent amount of variations in the longer tail keywords, just through somebody typing in an extra word or not, or swapping it around, that if you're only running those in exact match, you actually would miss out on that search traffic. So I would say I wouldn't be wouldn't hesitate to test it also in probably a modified broad match. But caveat there is, especially seeing insurance supplements, we just talked about crazy high cost for clicks and crazy high cost of testing in that category. I would definitely recommend putting lower bids there, which you should be able to get away with if there's lower search volume anyways. Mark has a question about, I'll put this one up there. Do agencies welcome PPC SEO via interns without pay, just purely immersion? We do not in our agency. The reason why is because just the clientele that we work with and how we work, we require just I guess we just say like we don't really have junior members on our team. They're like full-fledged like ad strategists, and that's just, again, that's how our agency structures it. That's who we like to work with, and that's the level of service that we're just invested in making sure. So we don't really have, say, an intern. I know that there are agencies that will offer intern programs. Specifically, one I know my Amazon guy does as well. I don't know if Trivium does, but you might check with them as well. But yeah, so definitely does happen in the industry for sure. Just doesn't happen with us. Dante says, thank you. You are very welcome. Thank you for joining. We wouldn't be here without you guys' awesome questions. Do you think the honeymoon period matters during a launch? It does. It doesn't matter as much as everyone thinks it does. I will say that. Meaning, yes, you want to hit the ground running as much as you can. But if you, quote, miss the honeymoon period, don't feel as if you will never, ever get this product to sell ever again and you're completely screwed and all hope, like if you don't hit this couple week window, right, all hope for this product is gone. That's how some people talk about the honeymoon period, if we're being honest. It's not that extreme. It's good. Again, it's good to push products in the beginning, but if you, quote, missed it, there's still hope. I'll put it that way. All right, another question. Am I missing anything by only using broad modified and not broad? I like using modified because of how targeted it is. Not really. I mean, technically you would be missing out on the potential for like triggering what Amazon deems like related searches. If you really wanted to, say, push impressions, that can be helpful. But again, caveat when doing this, I would always keep bids lower for sure. That's something that's literally baked into our bid algorithm, is keeping the bids low. Cool. All right. Yeah. So I just run the long-term and exact match because of the cost per click. For instance, I was talking about strategy earlier. I'll validate, then try and broad match phase. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I would say other options. And again, this is actually dependent on ad spend more than like, is this a good strategy or not? If you have the ad spend bandwidth to do it, you can always start the bids really low, seeing as also you said that you're in the supplement category, which means that you could start them at, in the supplement category, it's starting a bid at probably 20 cents. I highly doubt you're going to get any impressions for that whatsoever. So what you could do is like, say, start it very low. And then what I would recommend doing is putting what we call like a bid ceiling on it, meaning a lot of bid automations have this in there. Again, our internal systems have this, but you can put sort of a cap, like go no further as far as increasing the bids. And then low for you is going to be relative. In some supplement categories, a 50 to 75 cent bid is low. And in other supplements, you might have like a $1 bid is considered low. So again, make it relevant to your category. But I would put like that low, quote, low bid cap on it, and then just allow whatever system you're using to adjust the bids upwards and increase them, because it's like no impressions, increase bids, right? And so you can do that, which is a test if you want to test it. If you already pretty much exhausted a lot of your ad spend and it's not something you're interested in investing in testing, I think you'll be fine. Cool. Oh, Here's the one. Oh goodness. Here's a difficult one. So product cost per click is as high as $3 to $4 and profit margin is less due to many clicks. Please share some tips. Yeah, really what you need to do here is you got to find the keywords where your conversion rate can offset that a lower conversion rate or lower margins. I mean, you need to find the keywords where you have high enough conversion rate to make that $3 to $4 bid work. Is really, which is sometimes easier said than done depending on the product performance. But if I had to give you like a quick thing to look at, I would say it definitely has to be that. All right. This is a broader question on proven launch strategy. I want to see if I can pull up this thing. Goodness. Okay. So I sent out a newsletter week before last on this. So like I said, I would recommend getting on the newsletter. If you are able to, I would go to our website, junglr.com, or if you're on LinkedIn, if you go to my profile, there's actually a place where you can go to a form. I would recommend signing up for the newsletter because I put out stuff like that all the time. And one of the ones a couple weeks ago was literally on what is the campaign structure for launch, which got a lot of really good feedback. Recommend watching this video, private workshop recording, keyword research for products. This is on our Junglr YouTube channel. That is going to give you so much context as far as what keywords you need to target. Now, as far as the launch structure, you want to use sponsored products, exact match, fixed bids, aggressive bids. And that would be your proven launch strategy. Quick, short, and sweet. John, hey John, what's up? He's asking about Prosper wrap up. Yeah, I'm home. The good was it was amazing. I saw people. The bad is I'm freaking exhausted and my voice is about to go. And also good. People said they like my presentation. So it makes me feel good. People are asking how it was, and I'm like, so I am told that it is good. The audience is definitely the one who determines that though. So I always appreciate it. Cool. Let's see. All right. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to have to see if I can speed run these. I don't want to speed run. I'm going to give you guys the best answers I possibly can. But yeah, I'm going to have to answer these questions quickly. What's the best way to optimize bids with bid modifiers? Good question. In a campaign with multiple targets, which target stream do you have access to each target's performing at each placement? Yes, so that is the thing. I'm actually not a fan of placement modifiers on campaigns with multiple targets because it's really impossible to know which target is actually the one triggering the top of search and which target is performing best at which placement. You really can't. You just have to take the aggregate of all of them. And so in that case, what we do is we'll simply make bid adjustments based on the individual keyword performance, and then we'll make sort of somewhat separate adjustments at the campaign placement level. That's how we do it because there's really no way to go through it incrementally. Now, if you do have a single keyword, specifically probably a single keyword exact match campaign, then there are ways you could sort of tweak one to help with the other. That's a little bit more of a sophisticated, really complicated, totally calculable, but it's a harder calculation. But yeah, if you have multiple targets, there's no way to split the data whatsoever. There's no report available, not even in the API that's going to tell you which is which. And so for that reason, you just have to look at the aggregate performance. Good question from Aria. If I have ASIN out of stock, do I need to pause them in a campaign? No. Not sponsored products and sponsored display are called retail aware, which means if your product does not have the buy box, then it will not be eligible for advertising, which means that you don't have to pause it. So if you want to make your life simple, you should be totally fine. Now, if you are if you're running sponsored brand ads and you have somebody else selling through that brand, then those ads may not shut off. You might want to pause your sponsored brand ads. And if you have what's called like I think it's called product head start. It's essentially when your products are they're being checked into the warehouse, but they're not fully like fulfillable with FBA. Amazon will sometimes give you the buy box and I'm racking my brain for what the actual like name of that program is, but if it is turned on, and from my understanding it is turned on by default, that means your product will show available, so you will have the buy box, but your ship times are going to be really far out because your product's still getting checked into the warehouses, which at that point can hurt your conversion rates, which can mean that your ad performance isn't going to be that great. So if you want to make sure to check for that, you could pause them. But to keep your life simple, if you're asking like, hey, am I going to be spending on ads when I don't have the buy box? No, your ads will shut off. Cool. This is a good question. Ellie just said, yes, in stock head start. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah. So Aria, that is the name of the program. So you can Google that, in stock head start, to see if that's active in your account. But you'll be fine to pause, or to not pause them if you like. Cool. All right. Saw a YouTube video that talked about splitting out your auto campaigns into 4 each match type can run its own. His logic makes sense, but interested in your opinion or your experience if you have doing that. Yes. So the logic absolutely makes sense. I do agree with it. The one thing that I will say, and again, this is more of like you'll find a lot of my advice is like business decision. What do you want to do as a brand owner? Because that actually should really influence what you're running on the strategy. So if you asked me this without context and said, should you be splitting out the targeting types in your auto? I would say absolutely. It makes total sense. It allows for more flexibility, more strategic distribution of ad budgets based on performance, like a lot of good things that happen here. The one caveat is that if you have really limited ad budgets, splitting this out will typically increase ad spend. There's a little myriad of things that go into that. I got about 2 minutes left, so not gonna be able to jump into all that. But it has potential. Just think about it like this: the more campaigns you launch, the more keywords you're advertising on, the higher your ad budget is going to have to be able to support that. Now, there's ways you can restrict the ad budget through account level, budget caps, campaign budgets, all of that, right? But regardless of those restrictions, your ads are going to want to spend, which is fine if you have ample ad budget. But so for anything that is maybe a lower priority, we have less ad budget that we're going to put towards it. It's not something that we want to like significantly invest in. Then we typically will just launch one auto campaign for it. Again, for a little bit for the simplicity, and then also for better restrictions of ad budgets, because in an ideal world, you're not spending most of your ad spend on an auto campaign. You would much preferably have most of that ad spend in your manual campaigns, ideally ranking campaigns, and then everything else that kind of supports the product visibility and sales growth, which is helpful for BSR. So hopefully that was well. I mean, I definitely agree with his logic. I would say yes. I just typically it's like an it's depends, and it's depends in this case. It's dependent on ad budgets. So this has been awesome. I think I speedrun through most of your questions. Typically, again, I'm here every Thursday for an hour. Today I had to do 30 minutes because I had another call that we had to push back due to me being at Prosper. But as always, I really appreciate everyone joining in, everyone asking the questions. I always get some amazing questions here. If you're ever interested in joining in our future lives, if you go to junglr.com, on the wall behind me. If you go to resources, you can see Q&As. This actually will show all of our future Q&As. You can add this Google Calendar. And if you are watching this on a replay and you're like, dang it, I can never join these things live. Feel free to use this form, or if there's other questions that are coming in that I haven't gotten a chance to answer, That's my time. So feel free to use the form, and I will prioritize answering any of those questions in the next live. So as always, thanks so much for joining. You guys are freaking awesome, and I can't wait to see you next week, where hopefully my voice is somewhat recovered. See you next time.